Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back. Looking ahead, a series where I break down and analyze the meta, what's happening over in Japan, and all in Taiwan. Today, I'm breaking down what happened in the Champions League this past weekend, the first huge post-rotation tournament over in Japan, where Feraligatr managed to take down the entire event. Some really interesting decks kind of popped up. We had a huge right field, the counterbox. Forward gained top 16 with our archetype. Milotic Wolves really kind of in full force. Might be nearly 4 to 5 different decks over there. There's also a ton of brand new cards got revealed, including Cynthia's Custom EX, which definitely I think has a ton of potential. I just want to say thank you so much for support on the previous video. It truly means so much that you guys are really enjoying my content. And I'm of course going to always be giving these really exciting news happening over in Japan. And here's to another 100 episodes of looking ahead. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's start off by looking at these new cards, and honestly, I'm really excited for the Cynthia's cards. So obviously the main focus is Cynthia's card from EX, which is a fighting Pokemon with free retreat, which is really powerful, with 2 attacks. One fighting, does 100 damage, and draw until you have 6 cards in hand. It is really powerful, similar to like a Raging Bolt, which discards and draw TF6. So just draw in TF6, which I really like. Get to keep some of these really crucial cards, and obviously it's a decent attack as well for 100 damage for 1. Let's have our attack for 2 fighting energies, 260 damage, and then discard all energies attached to this Pokemon. This already seems pretty strong. 2 energies for 260 is really powerful, and it's a way to actually boost this up, constantly with its consistency. First one is Cynthia's Gabite, which I really like. I'm really loving these stage 1 support Pokemon to really help in this sort of late thing. I really go looking at the Ethan style of Quilava, which I think is really powerful. And Cynthia's Gabite is definitely very similar to a Gabite back in the Dragon's Exalted era. Ability Champion's Call. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for one Cynthia's Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This is great because obviously it works again if your other Cynthia's Pokemon, like the Roserade, like the Spiritomb, like even a Cynthia's Garchomp as well, using an Arvin as well to get the rare candy, you can go straight into this, which I think is really powerful and great for consistency for cards for this deck. It's also Cynthia's Roserade, which has the Glorious Cheer ability. Your Cynthia's Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this instantly means that if we have one of these out, this Garchomp is now doing 290 damage. Very powerful. If we have 2 out, which potentially could be most of the time, doing 60 more damage, that's 320 damage. That's the perfect number to KO like so a Dragapult, which I think is really powerful. Triggering, of course, potentially with a Vitality Band or even a Defiance Band, you can then get over the limit and actually hit over those 330 damage to KO like so Charizard. Cynthia's Spiritomb, I think, is a great sort of endgame sort of attacking. 10 damage times the amount of damage counted on all of your bench Cynthia's Pokemon. If Garchomp is kind of like soaked up attack quite here and there, that's over 200 damage on this one. You have another one with 150. You can obviously hit for 1 into your Cynthia's Spiritomb. So it's really huge one-hit KOs in 8 game. I really like this consistency. I'm really loving these Cynthia's cards, and I'm very excited to actually build this when it's out for us back in May. We just see one last Cynthia's card, which is a Cynthia's weight gain, power weight, which is this card's attached to this one. It's 70 more HP. Basically, Garchomp can have 400 HP. Very powerful and really strong. Potentially hitting for the huge one-hit KO. So I really like that in this sort of consistency and powerhouse what Cynthia can have to offer. Let's look at the rest of the cards from the Stephens and Marnie's sort of cards, and some of them are pretty interesting. Stephens Claydol has first attack doing 20 damage, and the opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. The second attack does 220 damage, and discard all energies from his Pokemon. For a stage 1, this isn't too bad, especially when you think about how powerful the Energy Acceleration Metagross EX has to offer. Stephens Skarmory as well has for 2 colors energies, 30 damage, and for 2 steel and 1 colors. This attack does 50 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. It's obviously great because you can have that sort of setup style of attacking option. Granted, I feel like Valley Metagross itself is a really good attacking option on its own, but I think the Stephens Claydol could definitely see some success, and a single price or attacking option do 220 damage. Marnie's Craft 3 is definitely an interesting one. For 2 darkness and a colors, 160 damage, and this Pokemon does 30 damage to itself. Not too bad. When you think about it, you can even have a Monkey Dory to move that damage around afterwards, which is still pretty powerful. Single price Pokemon doing a lot of damage. And we already have the Grimmsnarl as well. Another great Energy Acceleration. This could definitely be some sort of consideration. Of course, the last card we want to look at too is Marley's Purloin, as well as also Marley's Lampard. For 1 Darkness Energies, Purloin does 20 damage plus 40 if the opponent's active Pokemon is in the EX. And Marley's Lampard does very similar thing for 2 Darkness Energies, 70 and 70 more if it's in the EX. So 140 damage is pretty powerful on its own for a single price Pokemon. If we're in a very big EX dominated format, which kind of is looking like this one, but definitely Feraligatr is kind of like throwing a wrench in that sort of spanner. I could really see these cards have some sort of success going forward, but they're not as strong and to pair up with the likes of Marnie's Grimmsnarl. Now, if we look at how the City League meta share is really kind of like developed going into the Champions League, we can see here, I want to kind of keep up with seeing the percentage wise, what's going up and what's going down. We can see here that Dragapult did actually raise up in percent, only 0.2, whereas Raging Bolt fell down by 0.4. So they're definitely kind of like they're still up there by being still nearly about 50% on the meta game. They're just so powerful. Dragapult, I feel like people are still playing Nazatu, the good way to end accelerate. Some people are even branching away from having Sparkling Crystal and going back to an unfair stamp, having the likes of the EXP share, so you still have that energy acceleration to a certain extent. Regiment, I feel like it's kind of being solidified now that you have to play the Noctowl build. It's definitely the more superior sort of build right now in this format. It's much more of a sort of helps you in sort of the backbone as well. Kind of like once you get any sort of cards, well, guaranteeing a Sada to potentially draw into this one. It's much slower now. We don't have the Radiant Greninja. We don't have Luminion to guarantee that supporter card at times on the first turn going second, or even the Pokestop as well for that really aggressive discarding power. So it's a little bit slower. So that's where the likes of these cornerstone must focus upon to wall out the opponent's attack. So it's also the likes of not trying to get any sort of cards is really powerful. Gholdengo as well, the numbers are increasing for this. Definitely focusing a little bit more on Dragapult, which again, we're going to talk about a little bit later because that actually got second place. So it was definitely in a really good spot right now for Gholdengo. Obviously, he has a great sort of way to actually draw into certain sort of cards with its ability. So it also doesn't really know its partner right now. Dragapult is great because it's a good secondary attacking option, or it's the Dunsparce, another good way to actually kind of draw through the deck as well. Some of these newer sort of archetypes have actually popped around, like some of these Lily's Clefairy, which I kind of labeled it counterbox, kind of focusing on lots of the Ogre Crispin, as well as also Pikachu, as well as also the fairies to give everything all dragon weaknesses psychic, which is really, really powerful. So I really like this one. And Zoroark numbers have kind of fallen down a little bit. It's only by 0.2%. So that's a Zacian number that actually increased by 1% from last week. So we are seeing these sort of new archives are still kind of like making a front run. I think Arcalodon is the best way to play Optation. I think Zoroark is really good on its own sort of thing, focusing more on a heavier line of Dramatan to really focus on that sort of attack because it's so powerful. If we're in a format which doesn't have that good, relatively available sort of bench protection. As well as Feraligatr as well, kind of popped up again. So we've really put on people's radar about why this card is good. There's also Charizard and Gardevoir. It's definitely decreasing just a little bit on last week. I think looking at this metagame here, it really solidified one of the top decks. We see here that definitely the top archetypes best forming one are like so Dragapult and Raging Bolt. The other best new sort of decks right now is this counterbox, and we're seeing that Feraligatr as well. These new archetypes still going strong, strength from strength from week after week. Now actually look what actually did happen at the Champions League. We can hear that on first place was in fact that Feraligatr, which I love, and lots of people as well are really enjoying players right now in our format and realize how powerful it is, the great sort of walling effect it has to offer by promoting even to a Mimikyu, or in this case, actually having that Milotic as well, which I love this one. Having sort of a two-prizer, yes, in the active spot, it can't be down from any Terra Pokemon. This can nearly sometimes win you against some archetypes. If we're seeing Counterbox kind of like be a huge play right now, or even potentially Dragapult, it really protects and walks him against that. We saw in second place, there was a Dragapult Gholdengo deck. In top four, we had a Blissey Wall deck, as well as also a Milotic Wall deck. In top eight, we saw two more Milotic Wall decks, a Counterbox, as well as also Charizard. And in the top 16, we saw two Counterboxes, including one other than Toward Redcliffe, two Dragapult lists, another Milotic Wolves, Raging Bolt, Flareon EX. Yes, that deck actually did really well. There's also an Zoroark as well. So we're already seeing a huge variety of archetypes. We're seeing lots of these top decks I just mentioned actually pop up and appear in this one. We didn't see any of the Hop Zacian or even likes of Gardevoir, which I feel like those decks can be a little bit slower. They need a little bit more to keep going, but all of these archetypes here are so powerful and really strong. Especially likes of Zoroark. I'm so happy to see his archetype do well. I'm really excited to talk about it a little bit later on. But I think these tweaks, what this person did to get top 16, is that you're in a really good spot to see exactly where Zoroark can kind of go forward. And I really love that these we saw walls do so powerful in this sort of format. Because there's so much difficult to counter right now. Walls has a great sort of option protecting from terrors, protecting it from EXs, protecting it from basics, protecting it from Pokemon abilities. I love how different and so much varieties this deck really has to offer. There's also Counterbox, really kind of like going in hugely strong. They're getting 3 of the top 16 placements overall. I think it's a really powerful one, really focusing on how powerful Crispin is teamed up with likes of Ogre and a couple of energy switches. So right now, let's actually break down and talk about the list that actually did really well at the Champions League. First one we're looking at is, of course, this Feraligatr, the winning archetype. And lots of people really enjoy this list. I really think this list here is pretty much the best way to play Feraligatr. I love the aspect choice, having the Precious Trolley, really valuing your setup, because you can obviously search out for this one from having an Arvin in the early sort of turns. Getting out your Totodile, getting out your Feebas, as well as also your Monkey Joy is really powerful. Having the Budu as well, you can potentially use it for have that NG TM evolution to actually go up to your Feraligatr as quickly as possible. As you can see here, there is absolutely no copies of Rare Candy. So you've got to be in that much slower approach. These wally sort of aspects, having a Badu as well to slow down the opponent. So I think that's a really powerful option this deck has as well as also Crispin. You might go, but Charlie, you're only having one energy to attack, sorry, two energies to attack with Feraligatr if you have to, but predominantly you're only really attaching one energy to this one. That's exactly why I think this is so powerful. Having a couple copies of Darkness energies, because you can search out your Water energy and your Darkness energy with from Crispin, attach one to Monkey Dory, and then from hand attach to Feraligatr. Not suddenly you've got an attacking option, so that's also moving the damage counters on Feraligatr on the opponent's active Pokemon and getting these huge one-hit KO potentials. I really love what Feraligatr has to offer. I think this deck is a really fresh, really unique approach to this archetype instead of just focusing on just having Mimikyu as the walling aspect. They definitely analyze that potentially. We're going to see a lot more Terra Pokemon. Potentially, there's some Counterbox, which was popping up in the City Leagues. Potentially, Dragapult being, obviously, it was the 26% meta share. It's going to increase. So I really like the sort of synergy, what this deck had to offer, and isn't a very easy to potentially KO single price Pokemon from other sort of attacking option. So again, I really like what this Feraligatr had to offer, and really excited to see exactly what Feraligatr's future might be. And in second place, what's this Dragapult Gholdengo list. Now, we have seen this deck kind of pop up, obviously, in Champions League, only over in December time, where it did, in fact, get another top 16 placement. We see here that this deck is very similar to where we've seen Dragapult with Gholdengo kind of pairing. Obviously, we still see the 4-4 line of Gholdengo and having a 2-2 line of Dragapult. It's another good sort of draw factor with the likes of your Cloaks, as well as also just Dragapult is a great attacking option. Spray around the damage, clean up in the last 4 turns. If Gholdengo can't get these big one-hit kills, Dragapult can really clean up in the late sort of game. So we have that Crispin as well. Team out of the likes of Super Rods, you can instantly get it powered up very quickly. I really enjoyed this style of archetype, and I think it's really unique for how Dragapult Gholdengo really worked. And you can see here, it did very well. It got a top second place, and I could really see this deck kind of like go from strength to strength moving forward in this brand new post-rotation metagame. Now let's actually look at Wolves, and this archetype I think is good. Again, one of these decks which is going to go much stronger and really powerful in an unknown meta. And this is where I think Blissey is pretty strong. Obviously, it has 300 HP, the amazing ability to move around, so your damage count, your energies around, and then activate like some Monkey Dory. You're playing 3 Monkey Dories in this one and quite a few Darkness energies. So you use obviously the first use a TM Turbo Energize, put some Darkness energies around here. You've Monkey Dory, if you absorb a hit, move around 90 damage. And all of a sudden, you can have these huge one-hit KOs with Blissey, or generally just like walling it off and moving over damage counters is really powerful. But the Frigoraph, the likes of Milotic, as well as also Cornerstone Mask Ogre, these are great sort of protections against pretty much most of the metagame. Graph is great against these big basic attacking options, but it's counterbox like Raging Bolt. Milotic protects you against these Terra Pokemon like Drapagos or Charizard, as well as also Dragapult. Of course, Ogre protects from all Pokemon with abilities. It is so powerful and such a strong and unique way to approach sort of walling archetype. And I really love how it's partnered with likes of Blissey. And looking at another on the different spectrum for Milotic Waters is this one here, which a line of Frigoraph and Milotic. The rest of the deck is still really straightforward. Well, we've seen the Wolves deck kind of go forward. We've seen this Ace Bag Sword to heal some 90 damage from you. We've seen like of Crispin, it's a great sort of energy accelerator. It's powerful, especially with Turbo Energize or even TM Evolution. You can have your board set very much set up and have all of these attacking options pretty much going off turn after turn after turn. So again, this is something I really enjoy about where these sort of walling archetypes kind of popped in. As control is kind of falling away just a little bit. We lost a ton of really good sort of growing cards, like for example, Snorlax, as well as these Misfortune Sisters, and lots of these other great controlling aspects have pretty much completely disappeared. So control is finding a little bit a new way and kind of going the walling style archetype. And as for me, someone who doesn't really like playing against control too much, I'm really, really excited to see it kind of develop into here. Look at the top 8 list, and actually look at Counterbox as well. And kind of like, because we didn't mention it too much last week, see exactly what the point of this whole archetype is. And I love this one. We can see here it plays a ton of different options, and obviously 2 different Ogre-Pons. Plays a Teal Moss, which is great for energy acceleration, and the Welshman Moss Ogre-Pon as well. Having a good bench sniping capability, so it's also doing 20 damage and block probably something in the active spot. Pikachu is sort of your late game closer as well. And you can see here, we play 3 copies of Crispin. We played 2 copies of Energy Switch and a Sparkling Crystal as well. So a ton of energy acceleration, moving around with sort of energies as well. But also just kind of like reducing the attack cost. Because effectively, you can attack with Pikachu as early as you're going second, which I think is very, very scary. And it's a great sort of closing sort of archetype card as well. Fairy as well is great because it makes sure you're actually hitting for weakness into Dragon type Pokemon. So you're KOing the Raging Bolt, you're KOing the likes of what's it called? Dragapult as well, and not rely on just attacking with Clefairy, which is something I really like. And so much more of a Terra Star based deck, we're going to play a higher count of likes of Noctowl. I really like having a Blood Moon Sluna. It's a great finishing attacking option. And we saw toward getting his winning in, utilizing how powerful that Blood Moon Sluna really can be. And also love Ditto as well. You're playing a ton of basic Pokemon. Why not play Ditto as well to move it out from if you start with it, this one, it's basically any Pokemon you want. So I really, really like how Counterbox is really developing, and I think it's going to be a really good threat going forward in its new meta share. Also, another Milotic Wolves. This one here is a lot more protective as well. Plays like the rigid band, does play the hero cape as well. Sorry, cape of toughness, which is powerful as well. A little bit of a thinner line of Milotic, but definitely still the same amount of Unicus and same as Ogapon. But again, we're seeing a lot of Milotic Wolves and not too much variety as well. So always go see that Ace Spec, which obviously heals that 90 damage, which is really, really powerful. This one here as well, we're actually playing the Hero's Cape in this one, so a little bit of variety, but again, not too different as well. Not playing the rigid band, does still play most of the cards which are commonly seen, and I really like Monkey Dory as well. Just healing 30 damage as well. It's so powerful as well to potentially kind of like clean up some knockouts for next sort of term. And yeah, I really like Milotic Wolf going forward in this metagame. Let's actually look at the last top 8 list, which is, of course, Charizard. And over in Japan, they're really favoring the likes of the Terrapagos. 50 Terrapagos has lost its great partner being what's it called? Double turbo energy. So we're kind of like going kind of forced to play some either like Glass Trumpet builds or potentially Charizard to actually have this good energy acceleration option. We aren't playing any of the Pidgeot line in this one, but we still play the Noctowl much thicker sort of line as well, so you can get any sort of card you want to have, but also still having the Dusknoirs as well, because they're such a great partner for Charizard to actually deal even more damage out and fueling up your attack cost as well. So I really like the style of deck. I really like having the Terra Orb as well, guaranteeing either Trapagos or even a Charizard as well. Trapagos is great attacking, especially after your second turn, where it can hit pretty much 240 damage. Chuck the maximum belt in there, you're doing 290. Very, very powerful Pokemon, especially as a G-Prize basic Pokemon, which I really, really like, and how this Charizard deck really evolved to really focus more on the Trapagos build and not rely on the common one, which we're used to seeing right now, the Rotoms, the Clap Stadium, so it's also having the Pidgeot line as well. Now let's look at top 16, and the first one here is this Dragapult list, this top 61 here, and I really like this style of archetype. It's very similar to where we've seen most of Dragapults go, but like I mentioned before, it isn't running the Sparkling Crystal. It's playing the Unfair Stamp, as well as also one copy of EXP share. In a format where we don't really have tool removal, I think this is great right now. Having this one is pretty much is a guaranteed energy attachment once one of your Dragapults kind of fall to the wayside. We can still see it's very similar to build to what we're going right now. Much thicker line of Dragapult kind of drawing into this one, especially with the Jacques as well. And also having the Budu as well, slowing down the opponent, kind of going that sort of approach, which I think is really, really powerful. So again, not too different to how we see most Dragapults kind of like players build. Most people are running either 1 or 2 copies of Xatu, which is another way to have that energy acceleration and not rely on having these Sparkling Crystal. But I much prefer the EXP share build, especially with Unfair Stamp, especially once they've KO'd a Budu, potentially they might have a large hand side, disrupt them again, and potentially, hopefully, that can claw you back into the game. Let's actually look at more of these encounter box here. This one here is a little bit different to what we talked about before. Just like a 1/1 line of Farigiraf, which is great, obviously, against in a huge basic format. So it's also the mirror match as well. Very difficult for them to actually kind of like go against this one. And again, you can still attack with this one because it does require a psychic energy. And again, playing a high count of his energy switch, not playing the as Luna, but still playing the high counts of Phil Crispin and even having these good sort of energy acceleration option as well with having these Tiamat Ogapon. So it's also that as well. Really, really love what card boxes look like in the meta game. If we look at Taurus lists as well, so obviously this is going to be looked in quite a lot in our sort of format. Having such a strong caliber player do such a great placement over in Japan, I'm really got to put a lot of oomph behind the sort of archetype. We can still see here it's playing the most common sort of builds of the Ogapons does play the Trapagos, which I really like. It's a great other secondary attacker, especially in the late game. You have a huge sort of pencil size. Why not have this Pokemon here, which do 240 damage and KO pretty much all these Raging Bolts and Dragapults with that Clefairy out in the action spot. Does play a 4/4 line of Noctowl, but still playing that the 80 HP Hoothoot as well, which is really, really powerful as well. And again, playing those in 3 counts of the energy switch and Crispin, which I definitely feel like has become much more of a regularity, whereas the top 8 list only did play the 2 energy switches. So again, there's something to really consider going forward in this counter box, how we're really going to adapt going forward. But I think here, this deck is definitely here to say we have how powerful of a placement it really got to at the Champions League. This Milotic Wolves got its top 16 deck. Again, very similar to what we've talked about before. Doesn't play any of the Mimikyus or Monkey Dories, which I personally, I really much would prefer that in this one. They've got more of a heavy account of having that Crispin, having these are more energies, so we can actually try and attack with them as early as possible. But I still really like the sort of Milotic Wolves deck. You can see how powerful it really did in this sort of style format. Radiant Bolt did get top 16. And we can see here is the Noctowl build. So definitely saying that this is the more superior build instead of having the more consistent build, which we're used to seeing in our sort of format, which have much more on the bigger basics of Pokemon. Noctowl, like I mentioned before, is great because it pretty much gets you any of your Pokemon cards you really require, getting an option to your Osada, but also having that Crispin as well. You can have that good sort of energy acceleration for your Raging Bolt because it pretty much guarantees you get those 2 energies, or generally it's just a good secondary Sada option if you have a ton of energies in your deck. So again, I really like this one here. It isn't playing any of these famous Ogerpon, which we are used to seeing it in the style of deck. So that's definitely something to be a little bit considerate about. Do we have to add corners to Ogerpon, or is it just good to have that slow approach against the opponent in the early sort of game? And let's play that basic Raging Bolt as well. It's a great secondary attacking option if you're going into a sort of a single prize option. So again, really, really like this style of archetype. And kind of finishing off sort of decks, we've got to have a look at this end Zoroark. Sorry about that. And I think this is definitely the best way to play end Zoroark. We can see here we aren't playing any of the prime catchers or maximum belt. We're going with the unfair stamp. But I feel like you're always going to be a little bit behind playing end Zoroark. So I think it's a great sort of way to disrupt the opponent's side. You're already playing counter catcher. But pretty much your predominantly blasting effect. So for me personally, I really like having this in the style of deck. We are playing the ends card, so I feel like this has kind of become much more of a staple because you want to have that free retreat option and not kind of like have it like a Dramatam in the active spot. That requires 3 energies, and it's constantly very difficult, especially if you're heading prizes. Again, I love having the reversal energy, making sure that Dramatam could actually be an attacking option as well. We are still playing the Binding Mochi. There's a way to actually have another way to boost up the damage count, damage output from Zoroark, as well as also Defiance Band as well. Again, I really like the sort of encounters what this deck has kind of had to offer. And this is definitely going to be the end Zoroark deck, which I really want to be testing. And there's something too unique and too special about how different it is. But I love Budu as well. I think, again, this deck is just so, so powerful right now. And finally, I want to look at Flareon. And I think this card is a really interesting style of deck choice for the deck to go so well. And for those who don't know what Flareon does, it does 280 damage for its last attack and has even more damage as well on its first one. But we're like having that Leafeon as well. It's a good way to kind of deal with like some Charizard, which potentially be going around this or one, hitting for that grass weakness. And you can actually do even more damage as well for having that black belt as well. So I love we're seeing some sort of unique archetypes kind of go through. We have seen Flareon kind of like pop in and out over in Japan's metagame for a while. And I've say definitely in the last few weeks, I've noticed it a lot more into these top 16s over in the City League. So again, I really like the style of deck. I'm really excited to see exactly what the Champions League had to offer. Actually, sorry, finally we're going to look at Gholdengo list. This one here does play the Dunsparce. I mentioned a little bit in Champao last week in how I think this is a really good partner for this one. It could be a good one in Gholdengo. More on field deck as quickly as possible. You have Laventia as well to kind of like guarantee 2 sort of lightning energies turn after turn after turn from your discard part into put it into your hand. So that's a good sort of like guaranteed energy retrieval. And this one definitely focuses more on kind of having that as a way to actually get your energies back and have a superior energy as well, and not relying on sort of a high account of night stretcher or potentially some energy retrievals as well. So again, a little bit different about how we've seen Gholdengo play, but for me personally, I really like how Gholdengo is going in this one, but I potentially could see Dragapult be its best partner. So kind of looking ahead, is Feraligatr really here to stay? I really like this archetype. Lots of people really did as well. I think it's pretty potentially the single prize archetype. It's kind of like come out of nowhere, and it's actually doing well in our format currently. And as it's one right now in the Champions League, I think that's going to put a ton of weight behind this one, and potentially to be a threat even going into EUIC right now, as not many cards have really left of it. What is the future of Counterbox? Can we see Lily's Fairy actually see a lot more success in this sort of Ogerpon style archetype? It's a great sort of we haven't seen this sort of toolbox, so could this be like the new sort of a Lost Box sort of card right now? And is Wolves generally the best way to play control right now? Milotic saw an appearance in Feraligatr, but also it's great on its own. It's great with other partners like Ogerpon, Mimikyu, Monkey Dory, as well as also Feraligatr as well. Will we see Wolves kind of like evolve more into this controlling archetype? I just want to say again, thank you so, so much for support on this past few weeks. It truly has been absolutely incredible. And all these kind words being said the last few weeks, that generally means so, so much to me. So again, I hope you guys have enjoyed this breakdown. And it's so good to see we actually had the entire top 16 results from the Champions League actually get revealed pretty much a few hours after it got shown. So my name is TCG. I will see you guys in a few days' time for another video. See you guys later. Bye for now.